I'm ahead of you. I wanted to Sergio to finish before starting. So it didn't start like mid-sentence, which it is anyway. But
I'm glad that you think that you're ahead of me. You know what I told you just before about this workers constructing the building and so on, and you only have to tell them to build it. That's how I feel now. That's how I feel now with this. You see, I'm practicing.
True. Yeah. I think you have to do quite a lot more than that, but sure. Let's say this is the start.
I'm just here saying you do this and you do that, and that's it.
Sure. I don't think that's enough. I think you have to say how they're gonna do it as well.
Yeah. Well, press a button. You know how to press a button, right? So that's fine. But yeah.
All right. Let's get on with it. With holidays and everything. So we're actually a bit late because we should have had one last week, but I forgot to schedule it. Sorry about that. But yeah, technically this is the last meeting before September. And in theory, last meeting before release, but that depends on what's the date we want to release it in September. But
Sergio, we can hear some noises in the background from time to time. So if you can mute it, we hear each other.
But yeah, so today is probably going to be one big status meeting and probably a bit discussion about different problems that has arrived, at least in the parser. And there's still, for me at least, an unknown with the React components, which I hope Fran has an update on. And if not, maybe a plan on how to we'll see.
Yeah, I'll point to someone and say, you do it.
Oh, no. I'm pointing back towards you because I have a meeting, like a recorded meeting where you say that you are gonna take care of this. Yeah. No. Everything comes back to you this meeting.
Yeah, no worries.
Nah.
I'm good at delegating, no worries.
Sure. Do you folks have anything you want to add to the agenda before jumping into it? All right. I guess we can take the parser discussion first. Sergio, do we want to explain like the problems with it, or do you want me to do it?
Yeah. Yes, let's try to sync up on that. The point where we are here regarding the parser, so we have, in one side, we have the JSON schemas ready, right? Parser.js is already ready, well, so everything seems like to be ready for building. That's the thing. What happens is that some toolings need, and when I say some, we can use an example, the generator, Modeling as well, and some others. But in that particular case, let's center on focus on generator. Generator needs support for several parser API versions, right? That means it needs somehow to be able to parse documents and produce an object like a parsed document object based on a given parser API that is basically set in the templates. So you can configure your templates to say, please use this parser API version, or just rather use the other one. So how we get support to this kind of tooling that needs support for multiple parser API, not just the last one or whatever you are using in the parser, but those tooling that needs to parse an recent API document based on a parser API version, on a particular parser API version. For that, I created an issue where I explain more details. What is it about? I'm not sure.
So you said that the templates are explicitly stating which API version it will use. Why? Like why on the
Yes.
template? It was referring to a generator version, right?
No, because you can, one template can basically be configured. Let me rephrase. Depending on the parser API you are compatible with, where you are a template and you use a template. So then the methods, the API you use from the parser changes, right? One example is from version 2, from version 1 of the parser API to version 2, we just released a major change. There was a method that changed the signature. The signature changed in the way of returning a union of, it wasn't the schema, I mean, I don't know which one. The methods payload or something like this, when you call the schema format, previously you were always returning one value and now it's a union of this value and the file. So whatever, it doesn't matter, but the API introduces a breaking change. So what happened in your template, right? You are expecting always a value, but suddenly it can be undefined. Parser API is there to avoid those breaking changes, but still we will introduce them. That's why you have to set up your template to stick with a version, version. Otherwise, it could break.
And I'm thinking now, like maybe from a template point of view, right? Would it be worth if I mean, the templates have a parameter on the package.json that says I'm compatible with generator versions from this to this. Okay, so then why don't we?
That's the thing we remove. If I record correctly. Well, we don't remove it, but the point is, in order to not use that, because previously you were compatible with a generator version, because the API also changed, right?
But what I mean is that maybe what we could, I mean, what I wanted to say is that maybe we could release a new major version of the generator that has the new parser API only, right? And then if you want to use the new parser API, you have to point to that new major version of the generator. That's the only way. And then, I mean, it's not perfect, but I mean, we're gonna create a burden of maintenance in our tools if we want to support every version in every parser API version, in every generator version for every template. It's gonna be a mess, and probably and my point here is that maybe people don't care about it and they're happy to upgrade to the latest version of generator, right? So, and then we are creating a burden for nothing because nobody actually needs this flexibility, this level of flexibility. You know what I mean?
I think it goes a bit deeper though. So one of the things that's a problem is that the CLI is like the CLI passes an async API. Then it interacts with another library. It can be converter, it can be Modelina, it can be generator. Each of those libraries are using a specific API version that they have set up to interact with. And there can be a mismatch between what the CLI, for example, is pre-passing it with and what the library is using. And it's the same with, for example, from the CLI to the generator, from template to Modelina, for example. There can be a mismatch between API versions there, where the template is expecting an API version 1, for example, and Modelina has already upgraded to a version 2 of the parser API. So we somehow need to, and this is the most, I think, the most prominent solution, that you can easily convert between parser API versions without any trouble, so to say. So if Modelina, for example, gets as an input a already parsed async API document with API version 1, it just converts it to 2 and continue as usual. But if it gets version 2, then there's no problem.
I mean, if you guys feel comfortable with this, that's fine. The thing is that what I was just, I mean, what you're mentioning here, to me, it sounds like it's a problem of the CLI, right? Not of the parser. So the CLI is using different other libraries, and each of them require different parser versions. So parser API versions. So there's a way to solve that on the CLI. I think there was like something like an alias, so you can install 2 versions.
Yeah. That's in the issue specific. I wrote that today.
So you can have the 2 versions of the same library, living together, and then you just use one or the other depending on the.
What I did. Sorry for that. So all of this is already that issue plain.
Yeah.
So like several solutions. I think I wrote like 4 suggestions or 4 solutions, and in fact I moved a bit forward and I created another library in order to, as you said, you mentioned it perfectly. This is not a concern on the parser, but on those tools, right? So that's why I created a separated library for solving that kind of cross-cutting concern, like being able to instantiate an object, a parsed document, based on the parser API. And we don't mess on the parser TS, we don't mess in any other place. So that conversion that Jonas was saying, how I see it is, okay, in Modelina, you brought a parser API object, so just parse it again and produce whatever object you need. So with this library, you can get, if you are able to get the JSON, the document, the async API document, like the plain JSON or whatever, you are able to reparse and obtain an object parsed by the parser API you want, the version. And that's it. This is the only thing that you need. It's going to be an exception just for the generator, CLI maybe, or not the CLI, but generator, Modelina. So.
And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's only CLI and Studio probably the only ones that are going to face that problem, right?
The conversions, maybe.
I mean, like having to have different API versions support at the same time, or different.
But generator still is needed, right? Because you configure the version on the template, and you don't have to give support to all of the version. That's not the point. So we should not give, in my opinion, support for parser API version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, just for example, the latest 2, something like this. That's why
because I'm getting confused. I'll have to read it in detail.
Okay. Yeah, it goes a bit deep of what we can maybe discuss here, but trying to come back to the discussion. Templates stick with the version of the parser API, right? This is how it works at this moment. How it works at this moment for the combo of the new parser and the generator. This is how it works. And if the generator gets a template that sticks with version 1, and then another template that sticks with version 2, it should be able to have different parser GS packages installed, right? The one that had the code of the parser API version 1, and the one that had support to with the parser API version 2. Okay. This is why I created this alternative library that will replace the CS dependency on those packages in favor of this. Why? Because they will need to specify the parser API version they expect to be parsed, the document to be parsed. Right? That's it. That's the only thing. And those are exemptions. The typical user won't need that. They stick with a parser GS version, and if they want to upgrade either the parser GS, they will be forced to upgrade to the new parser API. That's the only thing.
Do you remember why? Yes. Like why on generator are we supporting? Why are we supporting different API versions, parser API versions on the generator? Like, I mean, for a specific version, like for instance. So what I'm thinking here is that couldn't we just have like, I don't know which major version generator is right now, but let's say, imagine the generator is on version 2, right? And it's supporting version 1 of the parser API. So couldn't we just release version 3 of the generator that supports version 2 of the parser API? And it only supports parser API version 2, right? Not the version 1. And if a template needs to have parser version 1, can target generator version 2. If a parser needs API version 2, can target generator version 3. You know what I mean? So I mean, like,
you say parser, you mean template?
No. What I mean is that why I have the feeling that we're giving so much flexibility in choosing not just the generator version, but also the API version, which and I'm thinking that maybe these two should be coupled. You know, like a specific version of generator has a specific version of the API, and that's it. You're gonna choose. If you need another version of the API, then you need to either upgrade or downgrade the generator, right? Because in reality, nothing else is happening in generator, right? So like it's pretty much stable in terms of features. Yeah. So the only things that have been changing lately in the last years have been just being able to change the API version, right? Pretty much. I mean, there must be some bug fixes here and there and things here and there, but it's pretty much that. It's pretty much stable. So like, why aren't we coupling for the sake of simplicity, coupling a generator version with an API version, parser API version, right? Because that will simplify a lot, you know, like just and we can maintain like version 2, we can keep maintaining version 2.1, 2.3, 2.4. At the same time, we maintain 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, you know, like you can, if you want, you can do it, but you don't really need it because we're not really adding many features to the generator. That's the thing. So it will be actually easy. And if someone needs a feature on the generator that is not on version 2 and it's only on version 3, but version 3 has this new parser API version, then cool, good opportunity for you to migrate to the new API, right? But maintaining the 2 versions right now all together with generator, so everyone can choose and so on, creates this kind of dependency mess, you know, like this kind of that's my feeling, like that it creates this kind of mess, like because you are providing too much flexibility that probably isn't needed at all. Like probably no one is needing that kind of flexibility, and probably most people will be happy to just migrate to the latest generator version or downgrading to a previous one, because functionality is pretty much the same. So, or even the same, I would say. So yeah, you know what I mean. So, and we can continue developing, and we can continue progressing, and yeah, like maybe there will be one feature and generator at some point that will be missing in previous versions of the generator, but that's life. Like it's just it's a new software upgrade. We can be maintaining old software forever, right? So, and especially generator, in the case of generator specifically, I mean, I have to check, but I have the feeling that it hasn't evolved a lot in terms of features. It's pretty much stable. That's my feeling, at least. I'll have to check. So I will be curious, like why we decided to provide such level of flexibility, right? To be able to choose an API version, because I don't remember, and and I should remember because I'm a co-owner of that repo, but I don't. So or I was, I'm not sure if I'm still a co-owner of that repo, but I'm not really actively maintaining it, so I don't remember. But
the
yeah,
reason is the same as why we have a parser API. It's a similar reason.
a parser where?
It like the reason why you can change the parser API, like for a template to choose which parser API version they can select, is because we had old templates that should still work, and we have new templates that follow a new parser API that expects certain calls to always work. And if you have differences, as you have between version 1 and version 2 of a parser API, for example, then the template won't work, of course.
Want to work with a specific version of the generator.
Yes,
but it will work.
You
with
can
the
do
previous or future one.
You can definitely do that, yeah. But that also is that's also a hard requirement for that. You have to have upgraded templates always. You have to always update the generator. There's no flexibility in what is maintainable and what's compatible. And you have to always make sure that the tools that a template uses then, of course, also supports the latest. So you almost create a more of a dependency hell than with a solution that adapts for whatever parser API version.
But isn't the purpose of the new parser API to be more stable across future versions?
Yes.
So that's my point. Like we can cut through here. Like here, we don't maintain the previous parser API anymore, right? CLIs,
Yes.
and all the tools that require to have multiple parser API versions can install different versions of generator at the same time with aliases and so on. That's the problem of the CLI and Studio and so on, not the problem of the parser, right? Or not even the problem of the template. So the template can be targeting an old version of generator, and that's completely fine, or the newest one, that's completely fine. But the thing is that as soon as we get rid of the old parser API, the future versions of the parser API are meant to be, let's say, more backward compatible, right? More resilient to these changes. So then we could be upgrading generator, upgrading, and no template will break because those methods will be there, right? Will still be there on the new API version, right? But if we keep maintaining the old one, we are the thing that I'm seeing here is that we are sending a message to the community, which is like, hey, we're going to maintain this anyway, so you don't have to migrate, right?
But what exactly are you maintaining? Like, there's no difference. Almost.
I mean, there's a huge difference. I mean, think about it. Like on the parser, you need to have this kind of switch in the parser, right?
No. It only supports the latest parser API version, latest deployment. That's it.
latest parser API?
Yes. So the latest version of the parser has the latest parser API. There will
Okay.
never be two versions on the same repository
And
or
then,
same version.
and then those templates that need the old parser API, what happens to them?
So the library that Sergio linked called multi-parser JavaScript is basically just switching between parser API versions. So it has two parser libraries installed. Like it has the old parser API version 1, and then it has version 2 as well. So if you are given a version 1 for an old library, for example, that uses version 1, then you can just convert it to version 2 if that's what you expect, and then continue as usual. But the problem is, as soon as you say that generator should only support the latest parser API, it means that you cut off a lot of templates. So you can't upgrade the generator. You can, of course, be backwards, like maintain it in terms of bug fixes, etc. But I don't think that's anyone that wants to do that.
I have no data about it, but who else other than us are creating templates or maintaining templates? We don't know that, right? So
internally in companies.
That's our assumption, but I had never heard about it. So
my last company had it. I know which one was it.
That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
That may exist. My point is that if that's only just a minimal part of the community, let's say, of the people using that that version of that version of the API, we could migrate all the templates that we have, that we maintain, right, to the newest parser API version, and cat the support there. And if someone in some company is using a template that they created with the parser API version 1, and they want to upgrade to the latest generator, it's time to upgrade your template, man. That's what I'm saying is you're trying to use, my point here is that, we always try to be as user-friendly as possible. But what I'm seeing here is that we might be being here like too user-friendly. Like in the sense of like we might be doing a favor to a handful of people in the whole community, right? Because the rest will be just fine using our templates, right? And there might be, I don't know, because I don't have the data, but my feeling is that not many people are using their own internal templates, or if they are, if we provide a clear guide on how to migrate, if they are, I don't think it would be super difficult for them to migrate to the newest parser API, and we get rid of that past as soon as possible. If they don't want to migrate, they can stay on older versions of our software. That's my point. So, as usual, because otherwise we will be like super user friendly, but we're gonna be a mess with our contributors. We're gonna create a mess on the software that developers contributing to the software will have to maintain. And I'm assuming here, again, I don't have the data, but I'm assuming here that it's going to affect more people by impacting the contributor space than impacting the user base. That's my feeling, because again, like with among all the conversations that I had from like Postman customers using async API, or those who want to use async API, and non-Postman customers as well, but that I've been talking to them, all of them who are using the generator are using the templates that we provide. All of them, like no one was creating their own templates. So yeah, there might be people. Actually, your last company was using it, but wasn't it because you were using it? Maybe.
I didn't do anything.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. I'm curious, like maybe it's because you were there and you are an avid async API contributor and user, and so Yeah, that doesn't count.
That was way before. That was before I did anything.
Okay. So yeah. Now I will be curious, like how many people we will impact if we do that. If we cut like this, maybe we should be brave and do it and impact people like this. And if they complain, we can always release a newer version of generator which supports backward compatibility. You know, like they can upgrade then to this new version and so on. So we can then fix it later instead of assuming that this problem is going to happen. Because I have the feeling that this problem is not going to be a problem at all. That's my point. That's why I'm surprised. It's a difference of perceptions probably of how you know. That's why I'm always saying, like, I don't have the data. But in my world, what I see, in my perception, I have the feeling that that's not going to happen. It will be cool to have the data and to actually make a decision based on data, right? But we don't. So yeah, theoretically, yes, it's possible. It's possible now. It's true. Probably it exists. There are people creating their own templates for sure. I just don't think that many.
We probably have to do some kind of better compatibility matrix, both in the CLI and other tools, to showcase exactly what versions are for what.
We've been pursuing this. Like, I mean, when I say we, I told Lucas, like, we should be probably somehow like getting some metrics on the CLI and some tools and so on, just to see at least what, like, this kind of things, like what version of the API people are using, of the parser API people are using, on the templates, what version of generator they are, CLI, blah blah, and so on, so we can have some data. But yeah, we never did it, so we don't have. But it will be cool. But the other way to do it is just create that problem, or do something that you think it's going to create a problem, and see how many people complains.
That's definitely an approach. Sure.
Yeah, and then you can fix it.
Sure.
You can quickly fix it later. Like, it's not really difficult if you think about it. You can roll back the change and so on. So if we see that people are complaining because we messed it up, we can roll it back, even in the same major version and so on, and we roll it back as a fix maybe, and that's it. Like, okay, we provide backward compatibility again and so on. But if nobody complains, we keep progressing in a cleaner code base. So yeah, just my 2 cents. Yeah, but yeah, not to connect. I don't even want to get into the decision making of this. Like, it's too much.
All right. So let's say that's in order, and we can discuss it next time if we find something else. But it is kind of important to reach some kind of agreement strategy, because we can't update the generator before we agree on a certain direction, and we can't upgrade the markdown template before we can, like, decide that specific thing. So it kind of needs to happen. What else? Oh yeah, we gotta do you want to talk about React components?
Yeah, why not?
No?
What do you want to know?
When is it done?
I'm not. I don't even have it on my plans, to be honest. So I mean, given that the plans for my plans during last month was just having holidays, so yeah, I still don't have new plans. But yeah, I'll have to check. I'll have to check what's next for me in the next let's say couple of weeks, and I'll start delegating. I'm being honest here. Like, I'm not gonna do it myself. So the cool thing is that so
what I'm trying to get is, do we wait for React components to be updated before releasing version 3 or not?
I mean, biggest use case of async API is generating docs. If
I
you
don't
cannot
care. The only thing I care about is release date.
Yeah, but that's your let's say that's I don't know how to say it's
Your
not
problem.
your problem. No, but it's not. I was going to say like it's your ego, but it's not. It's your problem. But the user doesn't care about your problem, right? So if we're gonna release a version of the spec that they cannot use for the biggest use case, right, that we have right now, it's the same as if we released it like before summer, right, when the spec was done and so on.
It wasn't done.
It wasn't, but yeah, like when everything was done on the spec, but not on the JSON schemas in the parser, right? It will be the same as releasing the spec with all the changes, but no tooling support for them. For some other people, there will be some, but for the biggest chunk of our users, it will be useless.
Yeah, but it will be done.
No, it won't. I mean, it will be done releasing version 3, yes, but you still have to create this React component, documentation generator, and so on, right?
Yes, still have to at some point. Yes. So the only concern I have is that we are creating too many dependencies for releasing version 3.
That is, I know. This is a new major version of the spec. What did you expect? You have to upgrade everything, basically.
Yes, but that's like generally whenever we release like anything with the spec, at least according to the contribution guidelines, you only need parser, only need spec, only need JSON schema.
Yeah.
And in retro perspective, we should probably either stick to that or change it.
So I think it's different in this case because it's a major version, right? And it changes completely. When we are releasing a minor version, everything else that was not in that release will work as always. So it's still useful for the majority of people. Just this new feature will not be useful because it's not yet implemented in your tool, right? And that's the thing. But for now, if we release version 3 and we don't have that support, it's completely useless. It will basically fail when you try to use it. So what's the point then? You know what I mean? So, and I'm thinking here about people generating docs, for instance. You're generating docs, and in version 2.8, we add one thing on the spec, but that thing is not respected on the docs. So it's not yet implemented in the docs. But the rest of the stuff, up until there, it's working. With version 3.0, will be like, you try to generate docs and nothing works. That's the thing. You don't get any docs. So then, effectively, it means I cannot use version 3. So you released it, and you might feel good, but people didn't. People cannot use it. So that's exactly what OpenAPI is doing. Like OpenAPI is releasing versions, but they don't give time to the tools to upgrade, right? So yeah, party, we're releasing a new major version, but who's using it? No one, right? You can't yet because there's no tools. So yeah, Modelina might be able to use it in the CLI and in Modelina directly. But the biggest use case that I see, again, that I see people using in KPI 4 is generating docs, not even generating code. And
Yeah,
upgrade, and
I completely agree with you. Like it's not even a discussion. Completely agree. The only thing I disagree with is that we hold on releasing for too long, extending the period of like when we want to release it because we're depending on a tool to change that has no reason to change because there's no urgency. For example, if I don't know, so if we, for example, release version 3 now, let's just say we released it tomorrow. People would, if people wanted to use those features of V3, for example, request reply, and specific components that they use, HTML template, they would go in there and complain. That would create urgency for both getting contributors, but also for the maintainers to change whatever they have. Right now, we have none. Right now, we are in like kind of treading waters in some sense. And everything falls, at least to some degree, to someone to push forward and change the things.
Well, I don't think that we don't have that urgency. We do. We do. It's just that what I'm saying here is that I myself, Fran, doesn't have this urgency because I have plenty of other things to do right now. I cannot handle it myself. But if you look at the shaped dashboards that I created, migrating the React component, it's one of the first ones to do, right? So because of this, so when I created those dashboards, I can share them. I did it explicitly just to make it clear, make it super explicit. What's the priority, right? And migrating the React component and therefore the documentation generator, it's one of the biggest priorities, right? So let me share my screen. I'll share the link there. So first of all, what I did here is let's enable, validation, because the docs folks were trying to validate V3 documents so they can start writing the documentation. And it was like, okay, we need to validate, and probably, converting was super easy. So I added it there. But if you go to the next one, the next one actually is add support for V3 documentation generation, right? And that involves adding V3 support in React component and in all the different templates and dependencies for this, right? And also code generation as well. So it's one of the priorities. My feeling is that what's happening in general with the release of the spec is we have a huge bucket of dependencies that we have to upgrade at some point, and it looks like a lot because it is a lot, right? And in fact, you actually made that selection. Let's say you select these things. I don't recall the issue, but in an issue you already made that cut off as well. Like those are not strictly required to release version 3, and these are required for version 3, right? But even in that issue, you have a huge list. When you click on them, there are more dependencies inside. When you click on them, there are more dependencies inside. So there's like it's a complex map of dependencies between each other and so on, right? So it's hard to grasp what's the priority there, because still a big chunk of things to migrate, right? The reason I created this dashboard, even though I know, some of you guys probably don't want to use it or don't like the approach of using these dashboards, and that's completely fine. But the reason I created this is to exactly give it a priority. All these things here could have done after, if not all, some of them could have been done after doing these ones. And I don't know if we have more. No, we don't have more. So we could actually be doing other things before we do these things. So we know the order doesn't matter, right? You can just pick one and start working and make progress. But the reality is that it matters. The order matters, even if they're not dependencies. Like it matters, for instance, what the reason I created this is for docs folks to be able to validate now. So to unblock them. So now, why I created this cycle number 2, which doesn't have to be one after the other. You can be working on the 2 at the same time. It's just that this tool is not meant for that. But yeah, I explained this in the last Spec 3 meeting. So the reason I did this is like, okay, forget about everything else. that is pending on the spec 3.0 release, right? Let's forget about everything else. Let's just focus on this, on making it possible for people to generate documentation and generate code, right? After or at the same time we build this. But you see, like, there are no more cycles, because to me, this is a huge priority. You know, like, we need to be able to generate docs and code. If we have that, we can then have the website to have a demo. We can record demos. We can do some whatever kind of, you know, marketing material if you want, like explaining how you do it, how you use it, and so on, right? Without this, we cannot do anything of that, right? And then it's useless, right? For the majority of the people, right? If you are, again, if you are a contributor to async API and you and notice that Modelina is not here, right? For instance, if you're a Modelina user and Modelina is already migrated, you can already benefit from Modelina, from version 3 of Modelina. But the majority of people are not using Modelina. The majority of people are using documentation generation, right? So that's why it's here. And that's why it's not even the second one, it's the first one. I wanted to make it super prominent. So again, to me, it's a huge priority. It's the biggest priority that we have right now, given that the other one, this is complete. I mean, this is mostly complete because this is just missing some small stuff and same thing here. I think this is just a bug. Yeah. So, but it's not really necessary to be done. But yeah, it's part of that story. Let's say what that is. So this is the biggest priority, having the React component out of the door, and the docs, of course. But the thing is that I myself, if you're asking me, I cannot handle this. I can't. So we need someone to handle this. That's the only thing. I'm also not asking you to handle this, right? Because I know that you are busy doing other stuff. But yeah, so yeah, I don't want you to, or I don't want to sound like I don't care about the React and so on. It's just that, no, for my own mental health, I cannot handle it myself, right? Because there are too many things that I'm handling right now. I'm juggling. I'm like a juggler right now. So, but that's the biggest priority, in my opinion. And that's why I created these dashboards, to make it explicit, to make it visible. That's it. Let me share the link to the.
Makes sense.
So yeah, if someone watching this now or later wants to help, this is the biggest help that you can do it right now. And it doesn't have to change the design of the docs or anything. It's just migrated to the latest parser API version, so that we can use version 3 and version 2. And that's it.
Do you know, in the React components, wasn't there talk about already having a restructure?
Yes, but it doesn't have to happen at the same time. That's my point.
Okay, let me rephrase. Is there already a restructuring in progress?
Only on the design side, nothing on code.
Okay, so the code will remain the same, the design will be different. So the reason for asking this is there a conflict between those two tasks in terms of like, can we do both at the same time with no problem?
We should. Thing is that we have ASMIT, right? ASMIT is participating in a design task on our mentorship program, right? So ASMIT is actually working on Figma, not on the code, right? On the design of the new docs, right? So it's completely non-blocking. He can continue doing the design, and we can continue doing this because he's not touching the code at all, right? So, and he will, I mean, he might implement this new design at some point, but again, like, it's not a priority to have the new design. If we had to wait for the new design to be implemented in the code, I will be happy to block it until we have that, right? Until we have version 3 support, or until we have parser API version 2, right? In the template, I mean, not in the template, sorry, in the React component, so that we can support version 3, right? Not even, or maybe, I mean, it's not even necessary, like, but I will just make it work even without request response being visible there. Like you use request reply, and nothing appears in the docs. Even this will be, I think, enough. Then we add that to the docs, and then we redesign everything, or at the same time we're redesigning everything, right? We just need to make it work with version 3 and not crash. We need to make it work and not crash with version 3. If it doesn't crash, that's enough.
I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, because my point is that it might sound like a lot of work, but I don't think it is. I think you just have to go to the, I mean, if you're familiar with the React component,
I'm not.
or with React in general, I'm not anymore as well. But my point is that in some places we are using the async API parser and we're making some calls to retrieve the data, right? And then we're doing something with the data, which is render this UI and so on. Those calls to parser are the only things that need to be changed. That's the only thing. With this, it will work with version 3.
All right. So it's easy. 1, 2, 3, we're done. That's what you're saying.
So,
that's what I heard.
With this, we will have support of version 3, but we will, I mean, if you ask me, I would love, before we announce big that we have a new version 3, blah, 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 out of the door and whatever, I would love if our docs shows you with any design, I don't care now about the design, that you have a request and you have a reply. Right? Because I think that's the biggest selling point of version 3 right now, or one of the biggest. So I would love to see this in place. But if it's not, that's also good enough, let's say, right? Or acceptable at least, right? People will complain, but ideally then a few weeks later, they will have this. So yeah. And if they complain, they can implement it themselves. It's open source.
All right. Let's see what happens.
I like your confidence. Like, let's see what happens. Yeah, I'll try to find someone to take care of this. But yeah, I can't promise anything.
Nah, I'll take a look today and see how difficult it is, and then do something.
You'll have it done by tomorrow, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm not kidding. Not kidding. Like, I'm not kidding.
Stop.
Like, I'm not kidding. You already did it with the Markdown template. It's exactly that, but on React instead of
I didn't do shit. Like that was Magic. I just took over his PR.
Okay. I saw your
Sorry.
name and
I didn't encounter all of the problems that I'm probably
going to look at the pull request for Magic and I'll learn from
sure.
it.
Yeah.
Again, you don't have to take it yourself. It's August.
No,
Relax, no worries. Nothing's going to be released until minimum end of September, minimum. So
yeah, let's see what happens. We're out of time. That's it. That's the last remark. Or do you want to add something to it?
No. Just I mean, if at all, I would just love to again like make it like, I don't know how do you say that in English, but like how you say that in like setting in stone, like, but in your head, like put it with fire in your brain, like you are not responsible for this. So this is a community project. If Jonas doesn't jump in, nothing happens. Exactly, nothing happens because you do everything right. No, but again, like it's okay. It's okay. If we don't progress faster, then we probably need to somehow do a better job involving the community in these things, instead of implementing it ourselves.
Let's see what happens in retro perspective. Probably have some ideas.
Yes. For sure.
I thank you for joining and see you next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.